Okay, so we are live at the moment. This particular place where we stopped, and just to have a brief recap before we continue. So this is how we are trying to make our application look like. We want to build something like this where we have a logo. We are making use of 6 buttons: one, two, three, 4, 5, 6. If you notice in the last button here, you have an image and a name, and you can see that anytime I like select, though I don't click on it, but when I select a particular button, like you can see that there's a kind of like an effect, like it becomes like lighter blue, and you can also see that the blue fades from here and it becomes deeper on the right hand part. But currently we don't have any of those here. So the first thing I want to do is to change the picture. I want to change the picture to this particular picture that I have here from Unsplash. So I'm just going to copy that particular image tag and replace it. Well, let me copy the image itself. So this, taking the image from Unsplash, and then I'm coming over here, going to my index.html file, and then I'm replacing everything within this source bracket. So I'm just going to delete this, select this and delete. Yes, I'm going to delete this and I'm going to replace this with the image. Okay, let me set my autosave to true, so I save each time that I change the file. So this is already saved. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to just refresh my page to see if I get that same image. Yes, I have that same image here. Now what I'm going to do is to reduce the size. I'm going to set the size to 30 pixels. So one thing you can think about right now is like when we want to measure stuff, our go-to measurement is pixel. We'll be using pixel for measurement for our web application, but when we move further, like I will introduce other concepts that we can use to measure dimensions on our web page. So right here, instead of having 130 pixel, I'm going to have 30 pixel here. Yep. So when we refresh that particular page now, it's going to look smaller. You can see that I set the width and the height to the same thing. 30 pixel for each one of them. So I'll have to refresh this to see the change, and then I can see the particular image, like it's kind of like shrinked. So the next thing I want to do is I want to add the icons for these two files here. So if you look at what we have here, the first thing you can see a crown icon, and then you can also see a bell icon. I already have the source code for this, so I'm just going to put it in this particular file. First things first, I need to we are using this thing. We are using, what do we call it? Do I have it here? Yes, we are using Fort Awesome, sorry. We are using Fort Awesome here. So I'm just going to be calling this particular I'm going to put in this I tag as prescribed by Font Awesome to be able to call the crown tag. If you look at this, these are the two most important things here: the FAS and the FA crown. So this from Font Awesome. I'm saying, hey, I want this to have the image of a crown. So I'll have to check that first of all before I just do the update for the bell icon. So when we refresh this, I don't want to be seeing something as small as that. I want to see the crown inside there. Yeah, exactly. So we can see that crown here, and the next thing that we can do is to also put that for the bell icon. So I can just copy this. I'll just replace the FA crown with FA bell, right? I'm going to put this here, exactly, and I'll change this to bell. I'll change this to bell. So if you look at the third part, remember I said these first two parts are what's important for font. Awesome. But if you look at this last part, this particular class is created by me, and in case I want to do like some special customization for this particular icon, no, so I'll refresh this too. Yeah, so in case I want to change the color, you can see that the color here is not black. So when I want to change the color, I'm going to have to call that my own class. I don't want to interfere with the class that was given by Font Awesome. You always have to remember that we calling this particular class here is we are just linking it to this file, right? This file already has like a bunch of classes that some other guys have created, and those are the classes that is helping us to be able to display the icon. Now I want to be able to customize those icons. I don't want to be able to, like, I don't want to have to call FA crown or FA bell to customize it. I want to leave their own definition as it is. So I'm going to be doing my own part separately, and that's why I'm giving it this type of class so that I can handle that in my own CSS file. So we've actually made some progress here, right? Because we have all this stuff here. So the next thing I'm going to do, right, is I'm going to be styling that particular header. So what I need to do with the header, I need to give it a height, and then I need to set the background color. I need to set the background color so that we have what we can see here. We have this blue stuff moving across from left to right, right? So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to give it a height of 50 pixel. So I'll come over here, I want to put it at the top here. So I'm going to say header, because that's the name of our component. I didn't give it a class, I just want header, and I'm going to be styling the header. So I'm going to give it a height of 50 pixel, and for starters I'll just give it, I can say background color, and I'll give it this particular value, and then I'm going to explain what this value is. So I have header, and I'm setting the height of 50 pixel, and I'm giving it a background color of 622D B9, starting with a hash. So I'm going to explain what you're seeing there for the color. But first of all, let me show you what our web page is going to look like. So when I refresh this, yeah, exactly, I can see the logo, and then my contents are actually outside the header, which is not supposed to be. So let me see why that's happening. If I missed a tag, yeah, I did. So everything is supposed to be inside the header tag, so I'm going to move the header tag somewhere down here. Yeah, exactly. Cool. Yeah, that's how it's meant to be. So let me check that again. So exactly. So I'm having everything in between the header tag, like inside the header tag I have my content, though it's not exactly what we want it to look like, but at least we're getting somewhere. So the first thing I want to do is to explain what we have there in the background color. We are seeing some kind of strange values. When you hear background color, or when you hear something about color, you want to see something like blue, red, green, yellow, like, but we are seeing some kind of weird combination of letters and numbers. Basically, or ideally, you want to see something like this. So I'm just going to comment this first part. This is how we comment in CSS. You can press Ctrl slash forward slash to actually comment on VS Code. Ideally, you want to see something like this. When you are setting a color, you say just write the color blue, right? And so if you go to your web page and reload it, you just see a blue color here. But there are a lot of colors that we can pick from. So it's not necessary that it's just going to, you're just going to have a fixed set of color palettes like blue, red, yellow, pink, green, I know all those other stuff. There are a whole lot of colors. Oh, you can see that normally we can just set it as blue, but we have like a lot of colors that we can pick from. There's another way of writing colors. Instead of doing this, you can write, it's what we call the RGB notation. So R stands for red, G stands for green, and B stands for blue. So when you're picking these values, you have to pick 3 different values starting from 0 to 255, 0 to 255, 0 to 255. 0 means that particular color is absent, and 255 means that particular color is like the maximum. Then you can use these different combinations to like mix and match colors, right? You don't really need to know everything about it right now, but if I wanted to have like a red color, I can just write 255 comma 0 comma 0. So if I did this and I refresh my page, yes, so the color is red. The same way, if I convert this, if I wanted to mix red and green, I don't know what that color is supposed to give us. Can't remember what they taught in fine art. I think that is yellow. So when you do that and you refresh the page, yes, you get a different color. So depending on how you mix these different colors, right? So with that same stuff, we can also choose to write the color this way using hexadecimal. So this, you have 6 digits. The first 2 is for red, the next 2 is for green, and the last 2 is for blue. So 00 is like the absence of red color for the first one, while the FF is like you have all the red, right? So we are going from 0 to 9 and from A to F when we are dealing with hexadecimal, because hexadecimal has 16 characters, unlike the decimal that we are used to. Decimal just makes use of 10 characters, which is from 0 to 9. But when we are dealing with hexadecimal, we are going from 0 to 9 and from A to F. Yes, so you don't need to know the name of the color. You can even come here and then pick any color you choose to, depending on how you're working, right? But I know this is the color I want to deal with first of all, so I'm giving it this color. I just set background color to this, and that's why we can see this color here. But then again, there's a problem. If you look at this color, you can see that it's if you want to move from this direction to this direction, you will say it's fading from here down to the left. But if you want to move from the left to right, you can say that it actually looks kind of blurry, right, in the left, and then when it's moving to the right, it's kind of like very, very deep. So how the only way we can actually do that is by using what we call linear gradient. So we don't set background color this time around when we want to do this. We set background, like usually when you want to set background, you probably want to set like a background image or something. It's like a shortcut, right? But this time around we set linear gradient, and then we have to pick two colors. We have to pick the starting color, and we have to pick the color that we want to move to, and then we have to tell the linear gradient which direction it should go. So right now my starting color is going to be whatever color that I have here. Let me first of all just put red as my starting color, and then I'm going to put blue, right, as my ending color. But I'm moving in the direction of to the right, from my left to the right. So this is how we are going to do it in the code. So instead of having background color, as I said, we'll just have background. We'll just have background. So the next thing that we can do here is to have linear. You see, as I start typing, it's going to come out linear gradient. I can just hit enter. Now in between the brackets, the first parameter I'm going to say is what direction do I want it to move to. To right. That's the direction I want it to move to. I want it to move to the right. And then here I can say from red to let's make it just weird, from red to blue. So let's look at this. So when I refresh this page, look at what we have here. We are starting from red and it's moving in this direction, and then when we get over to this side, it's now blue. You can see like in between is like, it's kind of like trying to mix it. This is the point where it starts moving from red to blue, right? So this is how we use linear gradients to blend two different colors together. But if we look at what we have here, these colors are, the color we have here is like very close. So this is actually like a very weird design. I wouldn't want to put something like this out there. So I'm just going to grab the color code for the two colors I want to use, right? Remember that they are in hexadecimal. So I'm going to pick the first color, and then so instead of having red here, I'm going to put the first color. Always remember that it has to start with an hash. When you are using the hexadecimal, it has to start with hash symbol. I don't know if there's any questions so far. Any questions so far? Okay, so I'm going to refresh this page right now. Then we can see that we are getting close to what we want. Everything is moving from here to here. This is our linear gradient playing out. I want to actually reverse the direction and say, I want to say from to left. Let's see what's going to happen. So I'm saying to left. So you can see that the starting color is here, that particular same color that we had at the left previously. Now it's at the right, but because we moved the direction to the left, it's moving from this part of our screen to this part of our screen. Just telling, it's depending on what we want it to actually do, right? So this time around the direction has changed. We can also do to top or to bottom, but you can experiment with those like later on. Right now I'm just going to change it back to right. Yep. So this is the right of it. This is me playing around with linear gradients. One more time, like I really need to know if I should go through this again or if we are fine with this. I know there's no thumbs up or anything here like that. That's the bad part of this code. Is this fine? You can just drop a message here and like tell me that it's okay so that we can move ahead. So basically where we stopped, actually, like, we didn't have these icons here, right? This image was a little bit bigger, and then we didn't have this background image that we have here. Let me refresh this again because I've changed that. We didn't have the linear gradient background image, but linear gradient though. So what I did was to change this particular image to the one that I had here. I just pointed the link to what I have from Unsplash here in the HTML code. So if you look at the HTML code here, I updated this particular part of the field, right? Now the next thing I actually did was I tried to put those icons for those particular buttons. Remember, we had like 6 buttons, and for 2 of those buttons we need to use an icon, a crown icon and a bell icon. So what I actually did was, remember when we are importing link style, we imported this stuff from Font Awesome, and I said that we were going to make use of this, right? So this is how we make use of Font Awesome. This particular I tag that we have here is us trying to tell Font Awesome that we need this particular class. These 2 things are the most important things, this FAS and FA crown. This FA crown is what's telling us that this is going to be a crown. We also did the same thing for the bell icon. So I also explained that I'm putting this particular stuff you're seeing here is not from Font Awesome. This particular stuff you're seeing here is just me putting a particular class here in case I want to change the styling of the icons. Remember that in our file these are not actually black, but when I call it from Font Awesome, it's black, and somewhere down the line we need to change this particular color. So for now I'm just adding those classes there. I don't want to tamper with what Font Awesome is doing, so I'm creating my own class that I can manipulate or deal with later. So that's one part that we discussed about, and then we moved over to styling the header. Now we gave the header a height of 50 pixels, and I said by default when we are styling stuff we are going to be using pixel to be styling things in our HTML page. So our dimensions will be in pixel, but it's not like pixel is the only dimension that we have. We have other dimensions, but for now we'll focus on that, and then when we are trying to use the rest, like, I'm going to explain what those other stuff too are doing. So we gave it a height of 50 pixels. Remember that the header is it's inside the body of our HTML page. It's the only stuff we have inside the body right now, and so every other thing is inside the header. The header is that blue part that we are seeing, and that's why we gave it a background. So I'm not just giving it a background color. I could have given it a background color of blue, but since I wanted a linear gradient is, how will I put this, it's just like you using 2 different colors, but you want it to blend at a particular point. So you're moving from one color to the other color, right? And you want to do it smoothly. So we are giving it the direction in which it's going to move to. We are saying it's going to start from the left and it's going to move to the right. So I don't need to write from left to right. What I just need to do in the linear gradient function is to pass in the first argument, which is to right. Then the next thing is I want to put the color, the starting color, and I want to put the end color. So this is the start color, this is the end color, and then I talked about using hexadecimal. So there are 3 different ways of writing colors. One is using like the normal colors, blue, yellow, red, and the rest. But if you look at what we can actually see here on the screen, there are a whole lot of colors here. These are pixels of different colors, and you can't keep giving a name to all these colors. Like if I move my mouse one spot, you can't say, oh, this is navy blue or something like that. It wouldn't make sense. So the best way to describe colors will either be that we use the RGB factor. R stands for red when we are trying to define color this way. R stands for red, G stands for green, and B stands for blue. So when we use the RGB, the values are going from 0 to 255. So we have 256 different digits we can choose for per color. So if I put 255 for red alone and I put 00, the color is going to be red. If I put 02550, the color will be green. If I put 00255, the color is going to be blue. Now you can get more creative and then try to mix different colors. Like we tried, if you go back and watch the video, we tried to mix red and green, and that gave us yellow. So we put 255 for red, 255 for green, and 0 for blue, and we got a yellow color. Right now I don't want to use RGB, but it's good for you to know that this actually exists, and you see a lot of people use this, and you shouldn't be afraid of using it, right? So I moved over to the hexadecimal color code. So from the hexadecimal, we already know what decimal is. Decimal deals with 10 digits, moving from 0 to 9, but hexadecimal deals with 16 digits. So we're starting from 0 to 9, and then we are adding a combination of letters from A to F, making it 16 different digits we can choose from. We have six characters here, if I can put it that way. We have 6 characters here. So the first 2 characters, just like we have the RGB, the first 2 characters represent red, the next 2 characters represent green, and the last 2 characters represent blue. So when I have 00, I'm saying is the absence of red color for the first 2 characters. If I have FF, I'm saying I want to have maximum red. So if I have FF0000, then that's a red color. If I have 00FF00, that's a green color. If I have 0000FF, that's a blue color. You can try to mix this stuff together and then you create different colors. So it's from here that I'm able to pick 2 different colors that you can see here, this color and this color, and then we are saying, oh, linear gradient, just do your thing, move it from left to right and from this color to this other color, and that's why we can see what we have here. So that's just a quick recap of what we've done, right? So I'm going to move on further, right, to explain the rest of the stuff. If you look at this, header, we are getting to like the permanent site, but there's still something wrong with this when you compare what we have here to where we are going to. If you notice, you can see that there is no white space at the top and there is no white space at the side of the header. But when you come back to what we have here, there are white spaces all around. There are white spaces all around. So one of the things that I can do is to try to do what we call like a reset. So I'm going to call all the elements inside this web page, and I'm going to remove some stuff which I'm still going to introduce right now. So there's what we call the margin and there's what we call the padding. So these are new stuff that, for those that have not been studying with us previously, these are new stuff that we are going to be talking about. What's a padding? What's a padding? What's a margin? I think I mixed both of them there. What's a padding and what's a margin? Let me come here. This is not the main thing we are doing, but I need to explain this further, and I'm going to explain this by writing my own type of margin, and I'm going to say 150 pixel, and then you just look at the web page and you'll notice something when I refresh the page. So you can see that when I refresh the page, like it looked like everything is small and it looks like our header was pushed down, right? So why did that happen? That happened because we gave a margin of 150 pixel. So I'm going to be doing something. We're going to be inspecting this web page. We're inspecting the header. You can just right click. So let me do that again. You just put your cursor on this particular element, which is the header. You right click on it and then you click on inspect. You can do this on Firefox, you can do this on Chrome. I'm using Chromium actually. So this is the header element. It's what's being selected right now. And then these are our styling. These are the styles that we have for the element. I didn't put this style here, so this style came from the browser, right? But these are the styles that I actually wrote in my CSS file. So if you look at my CSS right here, you see these three different styles: height, background, and then you see margin. And so we can actually see that in our browser too. So I gave you this particular stuff of 150 pixel. So if you look at the computed value, this gives you a clear idea of what's going on here. So basically, this is our element, right? I don't know if this might be confusing, but I'm going to use this to try to explain what margin is and what pattern is. So you have your element here. That your element has like content inside it, which is this. Everything here now is the content of your element, right? Now let me forget about the padding. This is the border of your element here. So the border is just like your house. We have fences. The fence is demarcating this house from the other house. So if I'm living in number 50 whatever and whatever streets, usually here in Nigeria most houses are like fenced, right? Number 51 has its own border. So if I peradventure jump from my compound to the next person's compound, you know that I've trespassed. So I have to be in between my own border, right? I have to be in that space. So the same thing for this element too. They have borders. These are the borders of the element. Our border here, this is the top border, this is the bottom, this is the left, and this is the right of our element. So that's our border. So what is the margin? The margin is a space between our element and another element. So if I have a header and I have a div, or I have two different divs, what is making this div to respect its own side, respect its border, and making the other div to respect its border is that I need to put like a margin between the both of them. That margin is what is going to separate the two of them. So let me come here and let me just create a div here. I'll create a div, not part of this exercise, but I'm just going to do this here. Okay, I'm just going to write a random text tag. Okay, let me see what's going to happen with this div here. So I have this div that my name is Amobi. Let me give it a class, and I want to give it a background color of I'm going to just call it div. So I'll come to the CSS file, right? I'm going to take all this away, please, so just bear with me. I'm trying to just introduce us to the concept of margin and padding and borders. So I'm going to have this .div. Now inside this .div, I'm going to say I want the color, which is the color of the text, to be white. So white is hash ff. I'm going to write this in full for now, ff, right? And I'm going to give it a background color of black. So just bear with me. Background color of black, that's going to be 000000. So let's get used to writing colors this way. It's not a bad idea. And then I'll reload this page. Ooh. Let me remove the margin that we have here. Let me remove this margin for now. So when I refresh this, you can see that my header and my div look like they're kind of like touching themselves. they have the same width. So you can see that the length of the both of them are actually the same thing, but they are kind of like touching themselves, and probably I want a space between my header and this div. So how can I give a space between the both of them? That's where margin comes in. So I either give the header a margin bottom, right, to push the div down, or I give the div a margin top, right, to put a space above the div and like kind of like separate the both of them. So I'm just going to do that right now. So right here, instead of having just margin, I can just say margin bottom, and then I give it like 50 pixel margin bottom. So when I refresh this, there's now a space between the both of them. So that's where margin comes in. Now I'll move over to border. I'm going to set a border around this particular div here. I'm going to give it a border of yellow. It's going to be very weird, but I'm going to give it a border of yellow to show you what a border looks like. Though we are not using border right now, but let's just have idea of what these things are doing, right? So when I talk about margin, borders, and paddings, like we understand what each of these stuffs are doing. So this is how we actually create borders here. I'll have border, right? This is how we write border, so bear with me. The first thing we have to do is to give it the width of the border. I want it to be 3 pixel thick. 3 pixel thick, sorry. Solid. I'm going to say this is going to be a solid border, and then the color is going to be yellow. So hash FF00. Yep. So we refresh our page, and then you're going to see like a yellow stuff around this whole thing. So you can see that doesn't look that clear. So but you can see this yellow stuff round about it. So this is the border. It's like our country, like this is like Nigeria or something. Or let me call this USA, and let me call this Mexico. So this is kind of like the border of Mexico, right? Now the margin is what separating the two countries. Each country has its own border. You shouldn't trespass, but the margin is pushing them aside, like, oh, I don't want to interfere with this, I want to be on my own, right? That's the margin. Now the next thing we'll talk about is the padding of this element. So the padding is more concerned with the content that is inside the element. I think this actually like a perfect example, this div that we have down here. So you can see the way that my name is Amobi is written inside the black, and like it's like everything is squeezed up together, right? There's no breathing space for those words that I have there. So if I wanted to put a space between the text, the content of this div, and the border of the div itself, I'm going to use a padding. So I can come here, right, and say padding. You can see there's also padding left, padding top, padding right, and padding bottom. If I don't put padding left or padding top or all those, I just write padding. The padding is going to take effect on every side. The same thing happens for the margin too. So if I don't put margin top, margin bottom, or whatever, that margin is going to apply to all the sides. So I want this padding to apply to all the sides, so I'm going to put 10 pixel, right? And I'm going to refresh this, and you can see that my name is now briefing. There's now enough space there. You can read this text like plainly, and I think this actually explains what a padding is, what a border is, and what a margin is. Before we move ahead, I don't know if that makes sense. If that's fine, please, I'll need reactions.
I have just one tiny question.
Okay.
In a case where let's say it in particular has a size, let's say 20, and then when I give what is inside the padding of 10, with disrespect, because by normal thing, you would think the word of cannot disappear. What is disrespect if itself has a height of 20 pixels, and then the padding for that particular distance is not 10? What happens?
I don't think I get your question exactly, but let me try to rephrase. So you're kind of like saying like, take for instance, we have these two stuff here, right? We have this header here, and then we have we have this div here. Now this div has like a margin top of, let's say, 50 pixel, right? And this header has a margin bottom of, let's say, 100 pixel. Now you're asking, I think your question is, which one is it going to respect? I don't know if I'm correct.
Okay, my network is ready. You can continue. I will put my question in the. I will put my question in the chat.
Okay. 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 So let me actually, while I wait that question, right? Let me take this div away because yeah, we're not using this. I just wanted to illustrate those concepts, right, before we move ahead, because it's going to be very important to understand why our web page is looking the way that it is looking. Okay, so I'm going to take this away. Yes. Okay, back to where we were. So the problem with all of this was that why I had to explain all those is because we are seeing some empty spaces here. Right here we don't see all those spaces. So I want to actually inspect the body, right? I can select the body and see, look at the styling of the body to understand what's going on. If you look at the body itself alone, you can see that we have like a margin of 8 pixel, and it's not like I'm the one that wrote that 8 pixel. Like, this came by default, like with the browser, it's just there by default. And the only way to remove this is by going to the code, right, and saying like, I don't need this margin of 8 pixel. So what I can actually do is, instead of removing this padding from the body, I'm going to try to, sorry, this margin from the body, I'm going to try to remove all margins and all paddings from every element in this web page. So the way I'm going to do that is, in my CSS file, I'm just going to go here. I'm going to use this, which is a wildcard. This is actually going to be very, very important. And if you are dealing with regular expressions too, you'll see this asterisk. So this asterisk is saying like, I want this style to take effect on all elements. I want this style to take effect on all elements. And I'm going to set all margin, top, bottom, left, right, to 0 pixel. I can just write 0. And I'm going to set all padding also to 0 pixel. Now when I do this and I refresh my web page, we don't have that funny stuff again. Like, we are one step closer to to the dream. We are one step closer to the dream. So that's one case solved. So the next thing I want to do is I want to spread these elements. I want to give this. I'm not going to explain like flex right now. We'll do that further on. But I'm going to actually give this header. I'm going to make its display to, instead of showing as a block, which is currently doing, I'm going to set this as a flex, right? And then I'm going to set a margin left for this particular element so that I'm going to be able to push it this way. That's the only, that's not, it's not the only way, but it's one of the ways I can be able to push this one this side and push the rest of this stuff this side. So the first thing I'm going to do is to set the display as flex for the header. So I'm going to come to the header here. I'm going to say display flex. So with every change, I just want us to see what our app is doing. So we get this funny looking stuff, like it looks like everything is stretched from the top to the bottom. We are going to leave it this way, right? So the next thing I actually want to do is I'm going to look at we have how many images here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to be picking this particular image and I'm going to be setting the margin left of this image in such a way that it's going to, there's going to be a space between this particular crown and this new div. So this new div is going to show in this side, and then this crown is just going to come to this side here. So I'm going to use margin or margin left auto. So when you are saying margin left auto, normally you're supposed to say something like margin left 8 pixels. Let me start from that. I'll just put a margin left 8 pixels and we are going to see it move then before I set it to margin left auto. So this is the way I'm going to do this. All our buttons have this particular tag here, this class nav button. So I'm going to call this particular class, but I'm going to look for its type and find the fourth one of it. I can do that inside CSS seamlessly. So this is how we are going to do it. Remember that the class is nav button, right? So I'm just going to say dot nav button dot nav dash button, right? Now I'm going to put a colon. I'm just going to start typing ent, and I'm going to select ent type of, let me see, ent of type. Okay, ent of type. This might look a little bit weird, even I'm not even used to this, right? But I know that things like this exist, so I'm able to play around with this and figure this out. So this is actually like, what I'm saying here is I have an element, I have not just one element, I have different elements called nav button. I'm not interested in styling all the nav buttons right now, but I'm looking for nav button and the fourth one that is nav button. So not just any nav button, the fourth one on my web page. So when this code is going to run, it's going to look for where I have nav button on my DOM. This is my DOM tree here. This is the first place I have nav button as my class. So this is 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I'm actually targeting this particular one, and the first thing I want to do here is to say a margin left of, let me give it like 20 pixel. Yep. So I have this, and I'm going to refresh my web page, and then you can see that there's a little space between this and this. So if I increase this to 100 pixel, we'll see more space in between the both of them. Yes, so we're actually getting there, but I don't want to hard code that measurement because on this particular screen, maybe the space is going to be like 500 pixel. On a smartphone, it might not be 500 pixel. So I need to tell my web page like, oh, please, can you help me just calculate? I want to move this particular stuff to this particular direction, and I want you to calculate the margin by yourself. I'm going to give you the margin left, but I want you to calculate that particular value. You know the value that is there. Just calculate it and give it for me. I don't want to know how you're going to do it. I don't care how you're going to do it, but just do that for me. So instead of setting margin left to a particular value, to a fixed value, what I'm going to do is to set it to auto. So I'm saying calculate this automatically for me. So I'm just going to do auto here. And so when I refresh my page, I can see that this has moved to the far right, and then so there's this space between the both of them. It's looking kind of like very ugly right now, but we are getting close to the permanent site. I know it's looking ugly, but we are getting close to the permanent site. I think we should call it a day.